Welcome to my YouTube channel.
Everyone is saying that Supergirl is the next girl boss movie and it's horrible and all these things, and everyone is lying about it. So to start off this video, I do want to admit there are many flaws with this movie, but if you are telling me that this movie is genuinely bad, you are just objectively lying. Let me explain something. I went to this movie with my mom, my dad, my sister, my grandmother, and my friend, and all 5 of us came out of the movie with the same opinion, that this movie was good. And that is why I cannot say this movie, despite its flaws, is a bad movie, because it was enjoyable to watch. It was entertaining, and it was something I don't regret seeing in theaters. So all those people online who are reviewing this movie and saying it's horrible and every single thing about the movie is bad are just lying to you, because there are good parts to this movie and there are some very weak parts to this movie. So yes, a lot of people are saying there is some stiff acting here. There are some plot holes, some bad writing. Sure, those are true, but they are not to the scale that most people are saying they are. To me, there are only 2 big inconsistencies in the story, and they both have to do with how they changed the story from the original comic, because they changed some very major things from the comic. I have it right here, actually. I think every single thing they ended up changing from the original comic was for the worse. For example, the villain, Krem, is nothing like the character from the comic. He is not the leader of the brigands. He is just a random guy who killed Ruthie's parents. Or actually just her dad, because in the comic book it's just her dad. Another thing they changed, which was a little bit more significant, was the theme of the movie. In the comic book, the main theme is justice over vengeance. And at the end of the movie, instead of killing Krem, they end up imprisoning him in the Phantom Zone. In this movie, there is no arc for Supergirl or Ruthie, because Supergirl, 1, ends up killing Krem out of revenge, and 2, Kara starts off as like a drunkard, which, yeah, does happen in the comic book, but the thing is, Kara rises to the challenge and helps Ruthie. There was just such an easy way to make this happen in the movie. You could have had Kara start out at this low point where she's lost everything, but she realizes that wallowing in her own sadness isn't going to get her anywhere, and she has to actually make a difference. But there is no such arc for that character. She is never proven wrong. So that is something else I had a problem with. And killing Krem in the end was just so shocking to me, but not in a good way, because Supergirl should never kill people out of anger. She literally says, "That's for my dog," and stabs him in the stomach, and then stabs him in the neck and says, "And that's for what you did to that poor girl." And that is what you would call killing someone for revenge. Krem was not about to kill someone, and the only way to stop him was to kill Krem himself. No, Krem was on the ground, weaponless, and Kara kills him. So that is something that I do have a very big issue with. The second thing I had an issue with was the backstory given to Kara. So what I initially thought the backstory would be here would be that Kara was born before Krypton's destruction, and she was sent away, not by her own choice, but because her parents forced to, and she had to actually witness Krypton being destroyed. I also thought they would have Brainiac be the one behind the destruction of Krypton, which they also did not do. And these are just kind of missed opportunities for me that would have provided her a more tragic backstory. But because she was born on the remains of Krypton, it doesn't really give her the same backstory as she has in the comics, which is kind of disappointing. And it also doesn't set up Brainiac for Man of Tomorrow. This is like a very simple thing you could have done. So that is just another big issue I had with this movie. However, these are both issues that really only happened in the 3rd act of the movie. Supergirl is not a girl boss character at all, because she is flawed, right? And she is likable in this movie because of her flaws. There is a shift in her mentality from when she chooses to stay as that drunkard character and when she chooses to help Ruthie. So there is a character arc for her, and there is a character arc for Ruthie. Are they both a little bit underdeveloped? Maybe a little bit, but they are there. And that's why I find it kind of ridiculous that a lot of people are saying that they do not have character arcs and that they are not heroes in the traditional sense, because I think that giving them non-heroic backstories and having them change over time is actually a good way to show progression of character. But why are people saying this movie is atrociously bad when it isn't? Well, I think a good case study of this is with the Marvels. I'm willing to bet that most of you did not see the Marvels. I saw it in theaters, and I actually watched it and I liked it because it was not what everyone was saying. It was not a girl boss movie. It was just an okay movie. If that movie had been great, obviously the discussion around it would be much different. However, because the movie was not great and just okay, people felt more free to talk about it in a negative light, regardless of if it was true or not. Everyone knows that that movie did not get much money, meaning most people did not go see it. And online, the general trend tends to be that movies that get a lot of hate have a lot of videos that get a lot of hate, and those videos tend to do very well. I obviously have no issue with movies getting hate if they deserve it, but if they're getting hate for something that is not present in the movies that people are reviewing, then I do have an issue with it. And a lot of those issues are present in the Marvels, and a lot of those issues carried over to Supergirl as well, because like I said, Supergirl is not a girl boss movie. It is not a James Gunn film, as a lot of people are saying, and it is certainly not a feminist movie. But both of these movies were set up to fail, and because of the marketing and red carpet premieres that happened before it. The real problem with both of these movies is that they are presented in a way that is dishonest to how the actual movie is. Are there the occasional quips like when Ruthie asks Supergirl, why are you just Supergirl when Superman is a man? There's like one or two lines like that. But no, these are not feminist movies at all. Supergirl was talked about by the stars themselves as being a movie centered around no man. That is not true. It is literally centered around a man. It is centered around Krem. I'm not even sure this movie passes the Bechdel test, and the Bechdel test is a test in a movie to see if two female characters talk about something other than a man. I'm not sure that happened in the entire movie, because all they talk about is Krem. And if they're not talking about Krem, they're with Lobo, and Lobo is basically saving the day for them. So yes, this movie is very much centered around men. Perhaps the main characters are not men, but there are men present in this movie. People are saying that this is very much a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. That is not the case at all. And once again, this is not the fault of just grifters. This is also the fault of how this movie was presented. The first poster we got was with her wearing the same headphones and Walkman that Star-Lord had, and literally wearing Star-Lord's jacket, or a variation of it. What do they think that's going to present to the viewer? The viewer is going to think that this is a Guardians of the Galaxy movie and that every single thing from Guardians of the Galaxy is just put in this movie, a lot like how Superman was. Because James Gunn is the head of DC right now, and he also did Guardians of the Galaxy. And this is a common complaint with his movies, that they all seem like the same thing. I, for one, think this movie is actually better than Superman because it is less like Guardians of the Galaxy. And I am shocked to say that. I was the person who was going to this movie to see how bad it was, and I ended up liking it because it went against all my expectations of what this movie would be. But the reason I thought that was not just because of people saying that online, it was because of how this movie was marketed. It was marketed as being all these things that it really just wasn't. So this movie was basically set up to fail by DC, and I'm not sure why, but I mean, they're not stupid, right? They have to know that saying these things about Supergirl's relationship with Superman and saying that she's stronger than him and making all these parallels with Star-Lord, they have to know that these are going to make people angry if they already don't like the fact that all of the DC movies that have come out have kind of been like James Gunn movies, because a lot of them have been. But this one is not. And I really suggest that you go see it for yourself. Are there a lot of flaws with this movie? Yes. But the fact of the matter is that they are not the majority of the movie. When you go see this movie, it is actually enjoyable to watch. DC cannot afford another catastrophe like this. If there is another movie that ends up being like this, it will be a failure and this universe is over. But this movie was actually good. And I am very glad that we got a movie with Kara. Even if it's not Kara from the comics, it is a good rendition of the character with a lot of changes. Millie Alcock really shone in this movie, and I was very surprised by that because I thought she would be a very terrible Supergirl, I'm not gonna lie. But she was actually very good. So, like I say in a lot of my videos, don't let people tell you which movies are bad before you see them. This movie was genuinely good, and I really think you should go watch it. That's all I have for today, though. We are almost to 200 subscribers. Please make sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.